Hi Judith, very warm greetings from Chittagong, Bangladesh. And in this video, I wanted to talk about the book that I read recently, Sapience, and we talked about that a bit. And this is not to uh, have some involved communication the about the or to answer the email just in direct way, but I just wanted to share what I learned uh, in terms of my previous knowledge and new thing. Also, first of all, I have to say that I really agree with a couple of points that you said. For example, the way human being killed the mammoth, and but uh, Harari forgot to mention that in some clear way, that actually the switching from the hunter-gatherer life to the agricultural life was not just a choice. It was they have to do at that point because they actually killed a lot of animals, and they don't have anything to eat basically at some point, or they understood that now they have to switch it, or because this is a necessity. So yeah, that's a good point. And but I I'm kind of in some mixed position about which life was better. Is that agricultural life or the hunter-gatherer life? And to some extent, actually, I'm convinced a bit that hunter-gatherer life was a bit better in terms of the kind of food they got and the life they had. Because to me also, I think the agricultural people's life, the farmer's life, is a bit difficult than the hunter-gatherer's life, because hunter-gatherer, although despite a lot of uncertainties in their life, but they had enough food, plenty of food, and their life was kind of the life even some modern people dreams. I think not me, by the way, but many people dreams that kind of life. There will be food. They don't have to worry about the food. They just have to go there and have it from some tree or some other places, and that's a complex situation. I'm just slightly inclined to that part. Like I think the hunter-gatherer's life was a bit comparatively just slightly better than the farmer's life, because the farmer's life was kind of complex, and there was sufferings, there was misery in some greater amount, in my understanding and in my intuition. Actually, I should say, kind of if I look at the situation, because the life is becoming complex, and some people are getting, this difference between the people's wealth and low income people and high income people. I believe that it started from the agricultural society, and then all these kinds of unjust system, actually, in my understanding, maybe started from the agricultural society. So that's a good thing. But in even another interesting point from your writing is, you said Harari actually wrote another book where he actually intentionally, kind of, it looked like he is just elaborating, just writing the pages and after pages, which is not giving us something new. And interestingly, in this book also, I felt similar. In the middle, at the middle, there are many pages where I just had to go read and read and read, but I was like feeling bored, and there were many pages here at the middle of the book, and I thought that he could have just skipped all the pages, and maybe he just tried to write all the pages just to make a big book, like 400-500 page book. But he could have conveyed the meaning by writing the same thing he could have written in maybe 200 pages. So I really agree with this point, that he has some tendency to increase the number of pages, which is kind of frustrating for the readers. But By the way, I ordered another book that he wrote, which had influence on and I hope that book it's not. I believe it's not in Bangladesh. It will come from somewhere, maybe from India. Uh, Although our people, the Liberian people, always says that they are bringing the book from fashion like USA or some other fashion sources, but mostly they bring it from India. So I know it. So it's not in Bangladesh. The book that you said, the about the Confucius and other people. Uh, so that should come like in 3-4 days. So I already ordered it, and I will read it, and I am really excited about that as well. So now there are a couple of points, Judith. There are really a couple of interesting points that I learned from this book, and maybe that was not the interesting thing. Is I also I think that this was not the point that he wanted to write in this book, but as you know, in some when we read some books and we learn something that we really even the reader even the writer didn't expect that will be the message to that particular reader. So there are a couple of things that intrigued me most, and one of the thing is, I'm sure you know all these things. You really know all these things. One of the thing is this uh, relationship between relationship. The way now we are now the marriage is found. The way the monogamous polygamous system is going on. I actually had this kind of questions in my mind going on for a long period of time, and I was wondering why this happens. Like why people will have some wife, beautiful wife at home, and why these people is going to some other place to have another to for another girl or another female. Even the same thing happened for the female also, and this thing even the female also sometimes becomes polygamous. This is one thing. Again, another thing also, that is another question. And why, if that's the intention of the people, why they make the family then? So he actually made really some clear points why this happens and how this happens is in the page number 47 in my book. I'm not sure if it is the same for all of people, all the books. He actually 46 and 47. He actually gave some examples, like there were at some point there were mothers who used to meet with many people, different types of people, like some carpenter, some storyteller, or some other people, not carpenter. Maybe there was not carpenter. Different types of people with different qualities. Here, she has to meet, and so that they thought that the child will have all the different qualities that all the male partner have. So that was her thought, and that's why she used to mate with different person to have a baby who have all the qualities of all the person. So I believe all the male also used to mate with many female at that period, and I think that is one of the thing which still people have in their genetics. So in their genetic code, that kind of thing. So is even now we have this monogamous nuclear family system. Not monogamous. It is actually the word people uses this monogamous. I don't believe that nobody is 100% monogamous. That's impossible. I mean, if I look at people's psychology, people what they want and what they say and what they do, then basically I believe that there is not a single person in the world who is 100% monogamous. Anyway, so the interesting point here is how these things came. My question was, I mean, long time I thought about this. Why this is happening? I mean, people should be happy. I mean, I have seen many of my friends having really beautiful wife, talented, qualified, educated in terms of manner, in terms of beauty, whatever you say. I mean, then again, same thing happened for the for other part also. Like one of my friend got divorced and his wife just left him, but he was one of the really caring and whatever you call manly, and I mean he had everything that in terms of my point, in terms of some understanding, like man should have this quality, then uh, from muscular point of view, from humorous, caring, uh, plus everything, and other part also, as far as he tells, and I'm sure he's really good at that as well. Anyway, she left. So basically, she left to her previous boyfriend or some other thing. So my point was like, why this happens? Basically, this book tells me that this happens due to the. I mean, I understood from these pages, by reading these pages, I understood that basically this was in our genetics, and still it is in our genetics, our genetic code. Although we switch from one type of life to another type of life, but genetic codes actually takes time to replace new ideas, new things. So this is a point of view, and why the another answer is why we have this family system. The reason is mother actually needs other people around to care the child. So basically, she has to make some kind of family system. Even in baboons, even in chimpanzees, this kind of thing actually happens. They actually make some kind of social system, so that their child, even in elephant also, you can say, they have some family system. The reason is so that they can care their children, and because a newborn baby actually needs tons of different types of cares. So basically, that is another reason. But the main intriguing thing was here. At this point was like this this genetic thing that I understood from this. Though he didn't mention it that this was the genetic thing, but actually, because this is how genetics works, as far I know about the genetics and human genome, genetic code, DNA, RNA system. Basically, it actually codes the thing that we like to do, we used to do, then it actually transfers to the next generation, next generation, next generation. But it is a very slow process. The biological thing is very slow process also, though the mental thing is not that slow. So this is really a very good point. Another point is, Judith, this is actually in the page number 164 to 165. This is he actually tries to differentiate between the natural and unnatural thing, and this is really frustrating to me. In our country, sometimes, not only in our country, in different countries, in mostly third world countries, or in the first world countries, in the second world countries, the values is different, the definition of right and wrong is different. So I thought about this a long time. What's wrong with everything? I mean, something what is right in your country, that thing is wrong in my country. Something that is normal in my country is quite abnormal in your country. What happens actually? Why this goes on? I mean, then what is natural? What is not natural? That was my question for a long time. And then he actually tells that what is natural and what is not natural is defined is actually the people's understanding from their Christian. He wrote about this Christian theology. So Christian theology actually mentioned a lot of things that human wanted to do in some natural, defined the natural thing. So basically, then people started believing on that, and people started living their life that way. And in my case, it should be the Muslim system, the religious books that tells us that this is normal, this is regular, do all these things this way. Then we define everything that these are the thing, what is called normal. And he actually explains this from another aspect also, like basically there is no definition of normal and abnormal, because the thing that is doable is normal. I think he tries to define it this way: the thing that is doable is normal. The thing that we cannot do is abnormal. For example, if you say a human needs to run faster than the speed of light, we cannot run faster than the speed of light. So this is abnormal because this is not doable. He also actually gave another example about this, I think. Or negatively charged electron attract each other. This is another example. Oh, another good thing is like photosynthesis. Like human beings should have the photosynthesis process. I mean, is this normal, or this is not doable? Basically, human being cannot do the photosynthesis process, so this is already abnormal. So I think his point here is the way people, the nature, what is natural is what is doable. If something is not doable, then this is not natural. That's the definition in his point of view. But this, my learning from this section is the definition of natural and unnatural, or something regular and abnormal, is basically done by some people, some books. They actually define natural thing, and then that thing became natural. So basically all these books actually tells us that this is right, this is wrong, and that actually sets the moral point of view. Natural thing, abnormal thing, defines everything, and that is another reason why all the people, even in this, at this point, in this global perspective, when most of the people are connected, really connected, and everything, I mean, they can communicate, they can see what the other people are doing far. For example, if I say 700 years back or 1000 years back, I could this would have been impossible to really know some leading people's speech for me, because if I live in Bangladesh, in some Chittagong, in some very narrow place, suppose now I want to know what the president of USA or what the European Union is doing, what Brexit is all about, or what this President Trump is doing, or Mark Zuckerberg is giving lecture, or even Noah Harari is giving interview, it would have been very impossible for me. I mean, even not in 0% chances in some cases, I mean, instantly. But now we know, and now we can communicate, now we can see them. Even if I say Shakira's song or Madonna's song or whatever, I mean, everything we have the same thing. My point is, we now can see the same thing in the internet, but even though we watch the same thing, but we understand differently. That was my question. Like, what's wrong with these people? They have the same thing. Even when people read the physics book, same physics, same physical law, but people understand it differently. I mean, people take it differently in different countries, different classes. I mean, this is very subtle example about the physics, but about other things, the example is very clear cut. Like, for example, some speech given by, let's say, Mark Zuckerberg is giving some interview about his new system of new currency system. Then we are getting the same information. You are getting the same information, but we are not taking it in the same way. Or after listening that thing, after watching that video, when we think, we don't think it the same way. We sometimes think that this and that thing is quite wrong, and you think that this is right, or you think right, we think wrong. So the way of understanding, my point is, the way of understanding is different in many countries, and my question was, for a long time, why this is so different? Why it is so different? So this actually explains a little bit. I think this is a clear example and based on solid evidence why people think in different way, and norms and values are different in many countries. Of course, there should be some social and cultural aspects also. That is also we should keep in mind. But the main thing is somewhat there. Another thing, Judith. Another thing I wanted. That was really. I mean, I'm sure you know about this, but in the page number 198 and 199. I mean, before reading this book, or before you read this book, maybe I'm sure you used to know about this kind of thing, but this was kind of new to me. This information is the sum of the total money in the world is about 60 trillion. Yet and yet the sum of the total coins and banknotes is less than 6 trillion. So, which is 90% of the money there is no money, which is kind of like what he's talking about. Like, let's say, I thought that, let's say, people have this money, then there must be this money somewhere. But actually, there is not this money. So I mean, the way this number comes, I'm sure that he has some solid basis for these numbers. Can you? I mean, this is kind of mind-blowing. There is no. I mean, this money is nowhere. There is not. All this money is just only some numbers written in some papers or in some computer. So basically, there is no that money. I mean, 60 trillion to 6 trillion. There is this kind of money is now moving from one computer to another computer or one account to another account. But there is, in real thing, there is not that money in the world. Even I mean, this connects with a lot of examples that I also had in my country. Like there are some companies, there are some banks which becomes bankrupt, and then I was like, even I mean, I had this experience, not firsthand, 2-3 years back. Like some people went to the bank and they had the money in their bank account. They have, but when they give the check to the bankers do not give the money because they don't have the money in their banks. So I was like, what? Why they don't have the money? I mean, if this amount of money is written in their file, so they should have that money. This is kind of, I know this is completely idiotic I mean, for me, because I was quite ignorant about that. I mean, there are many reasons also, like why they don't have the money. Maybe they have given it as loan. But that's a different thing. They should have some minimum amount of money in their bank, because if they have that number, they should have that currency. But it says that even in world's leading banks or everywhere, actually there are many numbers. I mean, 90% of the money do not exist. Only the 10% of the thing exists actually. Other things is just only some numbers in some computer or in some papers. And this was like, oh my god, what he's talking about. I mean, to me it was quite intriguing, quite interesting. Let me check if the video is going on, then I will continue a bit more. Yeah, video is continuing, so I have to continue. Yeah, Judith. So another point, like what he's trying to make here is, so about this thing. Another thing is that made me very intrigued is the happiness, the style of happiness. And this was I have to agree that this was completely new to me. The explanation was completely new to me, but this was also one of my long-term question, because why some people becomes happy in some silly things, whereas other people, even other people, when they have some good achievement in their life, they are still unhappy. What's wrong with these people? I mean, they look not excited. So I used to have this question for a long time, like what's wrong with these people? I mean, as a teacher, you know, I saw some students are getting 90%, 98% marks. Still they are gloomy and not happy. Even I have seen 97%. Which marks some students got, and they're not happy. I mean, another student got 60% or 65%, then they become happy about that. And the student that has the 60% marks, actually she's happy in some other aspects also. She's always happy. I mean, seldom she becomes unhappy. She also people have unhappiness, but most of the time she's happy. And the other people, most of the time she's frustrated. And I was like, what's wrong? I mean, maybe you thought about that, you should have some good marks, good results, that's why you worked hard, then you have got these good results, then now you should be happy. Still she's not happy. And the same thing, not only in the educational sector, the same thing is true in some other sectors. So when I mix with friends and I look at them closely, I try to understand what makes them happy and what makes them unhappy. Then I see many of my friends are happy in whatever they have, and they're happy in some small things. And other people even have some good things, they are still unhappy. So he explains in these books that every one of us, we have some happiness scale, and our scale is preset. Kind of, let's say my scale is set out of 10, my scale is set at 7, and so I will always be happy like about 7. If it goes up, it will go up to 8. Or if it comes down, it will come up to 7 or 6. If it goes like kind of that, so there is some range. where our happiness scale lies, and the range is always, interestingly, always the range tuned it. This happiness scale is tuned so nicely that always it tries to come to the neutral point, no matter what happens in life, no matter what achievement they get, no matter what sorrows they go through. So always that scale come to the same point. And there are some people whose happiness scale is preset to the level 9. That's why these people are mostly happy. And there are people whose happiness scale is set to the level 4 or level 5. That's why most of the time these people are unhappy. And I mean, he don't have any solid background, because this is a mental process. But I do believe that, based on my experience about the people, even about myself also, I think there is some solid basis about this. I mean, maybe this point is correct, because no matter what happens, some people do not get the same amount of excitement as others, or all the people do not get the same amount of sorrows or bitter feelings about some other things, because some people all of a sudden they said it. So this kind of is, so this explains, sorry, this explains a lot. This explains a lot about the social psychological system, about the human being. And really this is interesting. Now, I mean, after reading these pages, this is actually 432 to 433. After reading these pages, it was really clear to me. I will say this made the entire thing very clear to me, like why these things happen. I used to have this question, because I mean, I have a lot of other questions also that was not answered in this book. Maybe I will get the answer of that question in some other books. But I used to have these questions, like why this happens. I mean, why these people are not happy. Even for me also, whenever if I go to the most expensive restaurant in the Chittagong or hotel, or I mean for some other, for whatever the purpose. So I feel like even most expensive places and most lucrative places, and even though I go there, still I'm the same person. I feel it. I used to feel it inside. Like I don't feel any tremendous amount of excitement even though I'm there. I used to think about it, like what's going on? Why I'm not excited? The thing is, the entire scale was set at some point. Even in some very very disturbing situation, I never feel disturbed. I mean, it kind of like, okay, it's not that nice, interesting situation, but the way other people is reacting. Let me share you some interesting experience in our farewell ceremony from the high school when I was graduated from the high school. I mean, there was some farewell program, and most of my friends were crying because this is farewell, so they are going to be separated maybe. And trust me, I was not feeling anything, so I acted like I was crying, but I was not crying. And deep down inside, I know that I was like, what's wrong with these people? Why they're crying? Because I wasn't feeling it. Why they're crying? And the next day, I went to one of my friend's house, and he had some cousin sister or some other people who also was the student of the same school. And she came and she said, Faisal, what do you know what? I know that you are not crying, you are acting the whole time. Why you acted? I was like, because everyone was crying, so I have to cry, right? But I was not feeling that I should cry in this situation. So this was the very funny scene, and this kind of scene happened a lot of time with me. I mean, people were crying, and I was like, what's the reason? What's the reason? Why people is crying here? So maybe the scale for me was very narrow. From my understanding, maybe my scale for me is very narrow. Maybe it is for other people. Sometimes if their scale is preset to the 6, maybe it goes to the 9. Then it comes down to the 3. So when they're sad, they become, some people. When they're sad, they become very sad. When they're happy, they become very happy. Maybe my scale is 6 to 6.5, then 5.5. It never goes down to that, and it never goes up to that. This is, I'm not sure. I'm just saying. let me clear this up about these luxurious places in the Chittagong or in some other places. It never makes me happy, but it doesn't mean that I don't like it. I really like it because it gives me new experience, and I like the experience. I like the way things goes on. I like to see how they live, how they have the life there. So, and how they treat it, and what is the social cultural system there. So that's the thing. Actually, I like it, and so this is the point. This point actually is very interesting to me, and I really like it. The way it is mentioned, the happiness scale is very interesting. Another thing is the meaning of life. This is in the page number 437. The meaning of life. Um, why? I mean, he is trying to argue that if anybody have a why to live, the purpose to live, then his life is meaningful and his life is satisfying. If some people do not have the have the reason to live, their life is kind of miserable. So he's trying to argue that things, and he gave actually one example from Nietzsche that I think I should say, okay, Nietzsche, that if you have why to live, you can be here almost anyhow. So he's trying to argue that if a man if a people have some, I'm sorry, this is another thing, like while I was reading this right now, I'm not sure whether I should say he or she, because because he says that I have the husband, so basically in that case I should say is she, but in the conventional way I am just saying it's he. So basically this is one clarification about that. So the meaning of life, this was not shocking to me as a kind of completely new information to me, but I mean the way he said that even some life in some narrow place, it maybe is really satisfying because maybe that person have a why to live for his life. Even some other people who lives in some abundance of some luxury, if they don't have some why to live, their life is miserable. So this kind of explains a couple of things to me. This kind of explains a couple of things to me, and this also gives some deep insight about the way people live, and they are satisfied. The way people are satisfied. This also, but there is some slight collision with the happiness scale as well with this kind of information, and also the way he actually argues in some other pages. So that is also another thing. And another thing in the page number 438, the meaning of life. Actually, in this page and the previous page, in my point of view, actually self contradicts a bit. He's trying to argue that the meaning of life is actually he is trying to talk that this way, that there is no meaning of anything. So everything is delusional kind of. There is no meaning of doing this way. There is no significance of doing this that way. He gave the example like for the medieval people who went for the crusades. Now it seems kind of quite not meaningful, or who have built tons of cathedrals. Maybe the way they thought at that time is not the same to us right at this moment, and we are thinking is kind of differently, or even some other sort of things also. So basically, whatever now we are doing also do not have that significant, that really wider way of meaning in some bigger scale. Maybe after 200 or 500 years, or after 1,000 years, people will not think it this way. For example, he gave the example about delusion about humanism, humanist people, nationalist people, capitalist people. He also tried to argue about that this kind of all this ism actually may vanish, and this actually kind of delusional. I mean, these do not have the same meaning in a longer term that we now think. So that's also one interesting thing, and people are freak from this page. What I can think is people are freak, and people are always are kind of, if you look at the Second World War, First World War, basically most of the thing that caused the First and Second World War is kind of irrelevant now to us. Even we think like, wow, for this they started the First World War, or for this they started the Second World War. This could have been solved in a very more easier way, and why they have done this. Even the way that this war ended also kind of frustrating to us now at this point. But at that time, people thought that this is very, very important to handle this thing this way. So, I mean, so you see, the difference is people actually do not understand that currently what they are doing is also do not have that serious meaning, do not have meaning. So everything is kind of pointless, kind of delusional, kind of have no meaning, kind of everything. So I mean, one of my elder brother and friend, very, very intimate friend, his name is Mr. Nomanuddin. He also said me the same thing like 2 years back, and I wrote it even the way he said. His thinking and this thinking, Harare's thinking is completely coinciding with each other, and I believe that some people already know this. Maybe you also know this, but it was completely new to me, because I always thought that there should be some purpose, there should be some goal, there should be some reason, there should be some blah 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 for life, and there is something to be serious about. And there is, but he's arguing. This guy is arguing that there is nothing about which you should be highly serious about. Everything is kind of relative. Everything quite relative and have no meaning. Most of the things have no meaning. So this is kind of, I mean, about this page I used to have the idea before, but the way he explains, he actually puts a lot of bigger stone, a lot of bigger example he gave actually here. He actually, bigger example he gave. So that's the thing. Even he's in some sense, I think he is trying to say that even democracy, even Marxism, whatever you say, all this ism is kind of also is not that meaningful. Even capitalism is not that meaningful. Basically, it will perish at some point. Then in the next page, 439, this is, I think, one of the most deepest thing, which is know thyself, about that thing, and this is one of the ancient things. And I think many people, you know what, Judith, let me tell you that many people, even at this current age also, I have seen many people at the age of 60, at the age of 40, at the age of 50s, now they are saying that their life is meaningless, and whatever they have done is they never wanted this life. Then I was like, then why you live your life this way? And they don't have any answer. And I think the main problem is in this line, know thyself. They didn't know who they are, who they were. So I think that was the main problem. Suppose when you know that, I mean, this is one of the toughest thing to know someone's self, because I mean, for example, who I am, what I want, and where I want to see myself after 40 years, after 30 years, or after 20 years, or what should be my psychological or physical, psychological and philosophical point of view. I mean, what is really inside me is really very difficult to dig and find out that truth. So this is a very difficult thing, and sometimes I actually press myself and to find out the meaning and what I want to understand, or what really I want in my life. This is very difficult for me to understand. Even, trust me, I'm not 100% sure about this, and really every day I try to understand what I really want and where I want to see myself. But I think these people, those people whom I'm talking about, they haven't tried even that hard, or even maybe they tried even as hard as me or harder than me, but they never got that answer. So know thyself is really important. And he actually wrote another line which is more beautiful, I think. Liberal arts declares that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So basically, this also explains a lot of question. For example, why the same scenario, same thing, same situation is different to many people. So basically, this is due to the people, the way people see it. So basically, the answer lies on people. So if I can change my perspective, the way of thinking, the way I think, if I can change it. By the way, it's raining outside, so the sound is, I'm not sure if it is disturbing, but this is amazing. It's a rainy season in Bangladesh, and for the last 3-4 days, it was constantly raining. And also one interesting information is, after thinking 8 long years, I bought an umbrella. Okay, so this 2-3 days, I mean, just 1 day back, day before yesterday, I bought one umbrella. After 8 long years, I never used the umbrella. Now it is quite completely raining, and constantly raining here. So this is the raining sound. And so I was talking about this. The beholder, the beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, and this actually explains a lot of things. What I want to say is, this is a new information to me, that basically everything depends on the point of view. Everything depends on the point of view. I used to have the same question. Trust me, I never judge people. But it hurts me when the same truth do not mean as a true thing to many people, and even the truth people do not believe, and even some lies people believe. Where this is lies, I'm 100% sure, but people start believing that lie, whereas they don't believe in truth. So basically, this is from their point of view, the way they see. So beauty, I should say beauty or ugliness also lies before lies to the eye of the beholder. So so the thing is, know thyself is very important, and that's actually kind of explains many things. So I think this is also one of the interesting and very intriguing things. I think that's all from this book, from this entire book. These are the message that I got. Another thing, there are other things also. I think if you will agree with this, that this guy actually have some really insightful eye about the entire thing. The way he described the people, the hunter-gatherer people, like they are fighting, they are foraging, they are fornicating. That's all. Like by these 3 words, he actually explained everything about it. They were fighting, foraging, and fornicating. That was their whole life. So basically, when somebody can converge all the things at some very narrow points, I'm sure. I'm sorry. You definitely have this thing. Definitely know this as a social scientist. Definitely you have better understanding about this. So this thing, but this thing was very interesting to me, and I was kind of like shocked, thrilled, both at the same time by reading a couple of things in this book. So the way he explained the things, I think this guy has some clear insight about the thing. But definitely, I will argue with you. I will agree with you about that point, that he missed a couple of things. The way you explain, you were correct than this guy, because about that thing, about the reason why people transited from hunter-gatherer forager life to agricultural life. I think your explanation is far more stronger than his explanation. Also, he didn't explain in this book, as a critical sense. Now, if I say he didn't explain why, actually he didn't know. Maybe he said that he didn't know why this cognitive revolution, why this happened, what made people different than the other animals, or what is the reason, exact reason why. Because if you look at these things in some evolutional sense, what is the reason that made human being different? I mean, to become Homo sapiens? What was the trigger? What triggered to make the Homo sapiens Homo sapiens? He didn't answer these questions. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he said somewhere that he's not sure about this, or he did not know. So that's a good reason. That's a good thing. Also, another interesting thing about this is, Noah Harari actually became, and his idea has become very famous and very popular, and at the current time. But as Mao Zedong, most probably Mao Zedong said that if some people's idea or books, some idea becomes very famous or popular to the generation he is living, that means that idea, that thing will not live for a long time. So he said that if your idea nobody believes, but nobody understands your idea, but some kind of they think that this could be true. I mean, it's a completely new idea, but they don't believe that this is true. Then this idea may last like 40, 50 years. But if your idea is so revolutionary, again, people do not understand your idea. Then, but all of a sudden they start revolting about that thing. They start talking against about it, even though they don't understand that. Talking against that thing, against that idea. So some idea, if people starts attacking that idea. For example, if I say Freudism, or some other, even you can say Marxism as well, in some sense. But Freudism was highly attacked, even the evolution Darwinism as well. People actually, without understanding or understanding that thing, people always attack that thing. So basically, that is one of the reasons why that idea is still living for a long time. So in that sense, Noah Harari's thinking ideas will not live for a long time, because there is not that kind of thing that he is bringing here, which is highly contradictory or that we do not understand. But so that's another aspects to that you can or we can come up with about this his idea. But from my point of view, from my perspective, from my side, there was kind of a lot of new things new answer I should say, basically, that I had here in this book, and that is always a wonderful thing that we get from the book, and books are always amazing from this sense. And I think at this point I should say thank you so much. If you are really watching the whole video, I'm sure you are really busy today, and I'm sorry to take your very valuable time. And I believe someday we'll talk, someday we will meet, someday we'll have coffee somewhere in some interesting place and talk about the philosophy, the social structure of life and society, civilization,